Welcome to today's podcast. Chris again is our guest, and we'll be talking about the top 5 fast, inexpensive ways to start marketing your products and services. Stay tuned. Hello, entrepreneurs, and welcome to the Anytime Virtual Business Hub. We're providing business starters and builders with practical strategies and insights to build a successful business on their own terms. Let us be your trusted guide on the path to freedom, flexibility, and financial security. All right, welcome to our top 5 marketing strategies for new businesses. We're going to be talking about fast and cost-effective ways to start getting your name out. Chris, number 1 on our list is business cards. Why are business cards so important?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, the idea of a traditional business card, right? I mean, we would look at business cards in a few ways, right? So first you have like a traditional business card, a piece of paper, right? And depending on the type of paper you have and content you're going to put on there, et cetera, I mean, that's a huge part of networking, right? So if I'm really going to go ahead anywhere and live my brand anywhere I go, whether it be a supermarket, whether it be a trade show or a conference, like the idea of me embodying my brand and always being a voice speaking for my brand, having a business card then makes you more memorable. It gives you something that people can go ahead and reach out to. It helps you make sure that whatever you're doing, you are always networking, trying to get people's information. All of these things are hugely relying on you having something you can leave a user with or an impression you're making. And so that's one side. The other side of a business card is we would usually put that in terms of like a digital business card is going to be anywhere online where you have a presence. And so just like how you would leave somebody a business card and you would just get information, you would hope that they would follow up with you, et cetera. You can do the same thing through your website, right? Many people's websites serve as a digital business card, right? Or you have things related to like your social media profiles, your LinkedIn profile. Anytime a brand has a touch point with you, it's technically like a digital business card. And so, I mean, there's many things to talk about here, but the idea of you leaving something with a potential prospect that they can then go ahead and take action on it is hugely important.
I think the most important undertone of what you're saying is when you're first starting out in a business, you don't want to spend a lot of money before you have to. And so therefore you have to take advantage of every micro moment possible to communicate the benefits of your business, or at least the contact information. And so think of yourself as almost like a walking billboard, right? You might have a t-shirt, but most people don't wear it. They live on their shirts when they're first starting out. But to have a business card is something you can give your contact information and have a little bit of branding on there to every single person you come across. And in the numbers, everybody's not going to respond or, use your services, but they'll have your information for when they're ready to do it immediately.
There's so many things we could talk about just in that alone. But I mean, the idea of you're giving someone a business card, essentially the way I've always done it with clients at the agency, et cetera, is that there are people that have needs all the time. And so your business, you're supposed to always try to position yourself or your business as the ideal solution for how someone's going to handle their needs or wants or whatever it may be. So if you're handing a business card at the opportune time, or even if it's not opportune time, right? The idea where you can have a lasting impact where what they need is something that you can offer, how you can give value away. And that's really couldn't underestimate how much the conversation of value has.
And Murphy's Law says that when you really want to give your contact information to somebody, you're not going to have that business, right? So don't let that happen to you. Have business cards in your wallet, in your purse, in your car, at home on the kitchen table, right? Make sure those business cards are accessible when you need them.
Or even on one of these mobile apps, right? I mean, there's plenty of mobile apps that I've seen a few where you just tap somebody's phone and you give them their information. Then the other problem then goes, it's like, I now have so many contacts that how am I going to make this memorable? So it's on top of the idea of a business card and all these things. I mean, for the brand or the hard copy ones, I mean, we've used a few ones, I believe right now with ATV, we're using Move, right? Other ones like Vistaprint, you can go on Fiverr, have a design, work with one of these products or services, right? To go ahead and get it printed, et cetera. But like the idea of having something that you can go ahead and leave a lasting impression. It's not just a card now, it's also a card and an experience. And hopefully every person that understands starting a business side, it's someone wanting to do business with you. That impact that you leave, I mean, how you can best answer someone's problem. And going online right now and getting information for 10 different people is easier than it has ever been, right? So it's how easy it is to just go on Google, I need a business card. Like, what's the benefit of business card? Like, you can literally get all these questions answered so quickly, especially with the, sort of like the chat GPTs and the clouds, right? But it's the idea of how are you going to show or stand out, right, as the most intriguing billboard or the most intriguing person who I want to go ahead and build a relationship with, that then this relationship can then hopefully turn into future business. But that idea of that value and giving that kind of value, that conversation, letting people know that they're being heard, that's really what helps people stand out from the companies that have been doing it for so long and have such a huge presence online, and they have 400 reviews while you only have 3 reviews, and it's probably a cousin, your sister, and your mom, right? It's like, how do people really stand out? And it's one thing for sure is that as a company gets larger, they start losing a lot of that personal touch with their customers. And so doing and making sure every conversation and every touch point is as meaningful as possible is hugely important for someone starting out.
Yeah, no, I agree. You mentioned Vistaprint and Moose. So, there are self-service platforms like those where you can go on there and either use a template to design a business card, or you can use Canva or Fiverr to have a business card designed, and then you can upload a file to one of those companies or another local printer or something like that. So it's really easy nowadays to get business cards, and it's not expensive as well to get a minimum box of, this many business cards. It's not tough. Okay, so there's business cards. We'll talk about in number 2, what to do with the business cards. So looking forward to that. All right, number 2 is networking. Now that you have your business cards, you want to find places to give out those business cards. In your mind, why is networking important?
Networking. So kind of like we're talking about the business card side, right? I mean, the idea of it doesn't take that many opportunities for your business to start growing. It may take a lot of seeds you have to plant everywhere, but then one of those produces a lot of business. And so
you got to keep throwing a lot of darts before you hit that bullseye.
There you go, right? And so the idea of networking and the purpose of it, it goes into trying to find that 1 or 2 or 3 connections where maybe you're going to find other business owners that are in the same situation as you, and you can go ahead and bounce ideas off each other. Maybe it's going to be that one person who is, like I was talking to a real estate person a while ago, where he has a lot of business, but then he has one guy that gave him most of his business. And so it's going really deep with people. It's oftentimes better than going shallow with 100 people, right? Where you find one person. So, the idea of networking is really twofold, right? It's also for yourself, right? So you can also grow as an entrepreneur, as a business starter, et cetera, and trying to get as much information and feedback. You're going to learn the lessons one way, right? You're going to learn it through wisdom, right? You read somewhere, or you're going to go through it yourself. And the idea of that networking is one part. And the other part is finding those opportunities.
Yeah, and I think that the good news, right, is that television commercial or radio commercial can be expensive. And like you said, those are shallow interactions, as opposed to going to a mixer or a BBB breakfast, or your local chamber of commerce might have an event that is much less expensive than having to develop a commercial. And you're able to have meaningful conversations with people at those events as well. And it may not be that person who does business with you, but they might know somebody who does business with you. So this is all about amplifying from one to many your message, so that people in your area know what type of work you do.
100%. There's, I think, one friend that I know, he's doing incredibly well on the real estate side, right? And it's some of the things that he does. He has that personality where everywhere he goes, he's trying to build relationships. Like everywhere he goes, he is having a conversation, and not even only talking about his business, right? But genuinely trying to help others. And you have like this mentality where it's like, now you're starting to build relationships, and then at the end of the day, they're going to want to do business with you. Not everyone is like that, right? Some people are a little more introverted, right? Some a little more extroverted. But the idea of networking and showing, if you can't show the value that you can provide to another user, then nobody will.
I agree 100%. And, real estate is a good example of industries where the core person networks with people who are adjacent to what they do. So it doesn't even have to be networking one to many. You can invite a local mortgage broker to lunch, or a lawyer to lunch, or a title agency. And so you start marketing yourself to these people who are in your ecosystem. And then when they have people who are looking for your piece of that ecosystem, they might recommend you as well.
If I'm thinking about all these experiences, right, it's like you can go online right now and I can think of my go-tos, right? So it's a huge part of networking is, if I have my go-tos for, I need a business card, I'm going to move. I need something done quick. I don't have access to a lot of designers. Let me go on Fiverr, Upwork, right? Like let me go find some, maybe my go-tos. And so the idea of that networking part is to establish yourself as the go-to, right? So, I mean, if you're in a whole room of networking, right, then maybe you're that one guy. And I know that there's a lot of organizations and things that are specifically around that, right? Well, they'll have one of these like chambers for like downtown Miami or New York or San Fran, and they'll only have one person from every individual vertical. And I mean, granted, there's so many examples of this, but it's if you are offering a product or service and you're around your friends, are you the go-to, right? And it's like all of
You want to be on the top vendor list.
yeah, right. Top five. Going back to like what is that Metro or a long time ago with the Fave Five? Yeah, remember that one? No? Am I older than you? No, but yeah, no, the idea where a long time ago you have to pay for calling your friends and family on your phone. This was
Metro PCS you're talking about.
yeah. That's one of the big ideas, right? So, I mean, there's so many ways you could do it. You can go to different events, or you can go to conferences, trade shows. I mean, I know that coming from the agency side with digital marketing, right? So my entire career I've worked in a in-house marketing agency or a few. And so, I mean, there's a lot of different ones. I mean, we would fly out to Google, right? We would have conferences there. I mean, there's a lot of these like the SEM East and the SEM West and all of these different events where you would meet other marketers. You would get an idea as to what they're doing, what their strengths are, et cetera. And then you would also find some business owners that simply need help. That's one of the big ideas, right? Where like you can, any type of event, any type of conference. I mean, there's so many ways where you can really find a way to add value. And it's something that I tell a lot of people that I train over at the agency side was if you want to make the most amount of money, you have to offer the most amount of value to the most amount of people possible. That's where someone like Steve Jobs, right? I mean, there are billions of iPhones that have been sold. He found a way to add value to so many people. And so like that conversation of the networking and the value part, it's many times networking isn't simply me trying to get value out of everyone else. You also have to be willing to give value too. And so there's the networking side is a big one, right? It's making connection. That's goes deep.
I think that's really important, right? So I think that giving value first to prove that your services are as good as you think they are, and to establish a reputation and get reviews, right, is really important. I think also not being afraid to ask for help, to let people know that you're new, and to partner with that and to work together. And so those conferences that you mentioned, they could be a conference about your vertical. So it could be a creator conference if you're a creator, or it could be a conference that consumes your vertical. So if you're a creator, to go to a real estate conference, knowing that there might be a lot of real estate brokers there or mortgage people who need blogs written, right, or imagery or social media, could be a good way to go as well. And again, have those business cards, pass them out to every booth, every person you talk to. Don't be afraid to say hello to people. They're all in the same boat as you are.
That's a big one. Yeah. All in the same boat as you are.
Good. And before you even do that, what about friends and family?
Ooh, friends and family is a good one. One of the first things about the friends and family conversation is something that I would usually call like a smell test. And the idea of a smell test is you have an idea for a business, right? And like before you go ahead and really go through with it, right? I would usually recommend for talking to see how valuable or what types of needs do people have that you're trying to answer that question or that problem that you're trying to address. And so, I mean, friends and family part, I mean, they are going to usually give you some pretty raw feedback as to your idea. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't go through with it if you don't get good feedback, right? But the idea of those closest to you giving you feedback where maybe there's a holes in what you're saying. I think one of the things we were talking about earlier is I was working with a brand one time where their HR department was called the Chief People Officer. You mean a human resources director, right? And it's like you have these businesses, right, where what happens is they'll start building their own verbiage and they'll start tooting their own horns and saying internally, like, we have the best product and we have the best service, but they didn't do their research or their case studies, right? And looking at things like that, and where they will then go ahead and ask and do these surveys or interviews and get an idea for what do people actually look for. So, I mean, if you're someone that's promoting a chief people officer, right? Nobody in the industry knows who you are or what you're doing, right? And so it's not to say that you can't call your HR department the chief people, right? But it's like the idea there of, are you speaking a language that your users are actually going to use?
There's a few things there. It's always great to ask friends and family what their opinion is so that they can give you hopefully honest opinions, but sometimes they might not give you honest opinions because that would hurt your feelings.
It's true.
But even when they give you criticism, sometimes they might just not understand it and you need to explain it a little bit differently, or it's not their idea. So they're not coming from that position of really understanding where you're going with it. So I think that you always have to take it with a grain of salt, but you should always ask people about what they think. I think a lot of people worry that people are going to steal their idea as well. Sometimes that's why they don't ask ahead of time.
Yeah.
And I think you can't worry about that. I think you just got to keep moving. If it's that easy to steal your idea, it's probably not a unique idea.
I couldn't agree more. Being in that small business space and being in the fintech side and things like this, I mean, if someone comes to my platform or to a platform, let's say you go to a Fiverr or you go to essentially any online platform, and the first thing you're thinking of, what in the world am I supposed to do here? Like, that's where you don't want users to be. Like, the idea of path to conversion should be pretty smooth. If you're trying to offer someone or trying to get someone to give you a phone call, make it something that is memorable, right? If you're trying to use like a vanity phone number, right? Like, that's like the idea of trying to like reduce that barrier to entry or trying to get someone to understand what's going on. So it's listening to that feedback, getting it from them too. And if it's not possible for them to understand what your product or service is, you either have one or two things, right? Either one, they are not your target audience, and so they're never going to understand, or two, the way you're positioning it, no one is going to understand. And that's again, that idea where it's like, it's so important to get that kind of feedback from the beginning. Are you going in the right direction? Who's going to give you that feedback? Who better than some of the closest friends saying some of the good things you're either doing right or doing wrong?
And the reason that friends and family show up on our top 5 list is because you can mobilize them to communicate what you're trying to do. First of all, you're asking their opinion, then you're telling them what you're doing. And you ask them literally explicitly, hey, if you know anybody who needs XYZ, please have them reach out to me or please connect us. And so again, it's using exponential growth where you talk to one person or you talk to 5 people, they talk to 5 people, they talk to 5 people. And pretty soon you have an army of ambassadors who are supporting your business. And your friends and family shouldn't charge you to do that, FYI. Otherwise, they may not be considered friends and family.
Yeah.
But that is very inexpensive. And who else but your friends and family to be able to speak from a position of trust as well and know that you're going to deliver on what you're promising that you're going to deliver.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think there's so many examples where I'm working with a client at the agency and I don't know what to think about an ad. Like, is this ad clear? Like we had, let's say, like a design team come up with an ad or a video concept, and is this video concept clear? I mean, I'm telling you, one of the first people that I would message is my wife. Like, what does this mean? And if they can't tell me what it means, I'm telling you, like, people aren't going to understand what it is, right? So it's you could do it from images, you could do it to videos, you could do it to brand messaging, you could do it to your original business idea. But the idea of getting feedback from those around you, I mean, that's hugely important, right?
All right, that was number 3. Number 4, social media marketing. Where would you start with social media marketing, Chris?
Trying to go too deep, because I know that we're going to have many, many conversations about all the individual platforms. But I mean, the Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, like all of these different platforms are essentially those social platforms, but not every one is super relevant to every vertical, right? And so I would hope that people that are going to be engaging in businesses know who their ideal customer is and where to find them. A simple example, right? If you're looking for the 18 to 25 audience, that's a TikTok play. If you're looking for and I don't necessarily want to say that 18 to 25-year-olds don't use Facebook, right? But there's a higher affinity towards a larger audience. So you're looking at the 30s and the 40s, right? Or the 50s and 65 plus. So it's definitely a platform that has been catered towards like a little bit of an older audience. And so if you want a professional audience, you go to the LinkedIn side. I would say that social media marketing is understanding your right audience and trying to get the right message to them. How do you make content that someone on the other side is going to want to see or read? Right? It's like, where do you get started with the social media platform? You have to know who it is. And then you have to put yourself in the position on the other side and say, I would want to see this message. And whether if you're looking at a billboard down the road, sometimes it's memorable. And I will never forget, there's one over here in Miami where it's, your wife is hot, fix your AC, right? It's like that your wife is hot got my attention, right? Like, I am going to go fix my AC. I'm going to call these people to do it, right? But it's looking at it on the other side where it's, how can I make meaningful impact for moments, possibly build relationships, etc., through a media platform? And doing so, I mean, you're talking about getting the right message to the right user at the right time. And I'll say one more time, right message to the right user at the right time. That's something that Google had pushed for a long time in terms of some of their marketing. And so it's finding a way to be on the right platform with the right message. And this is adding content, right? Showing some of the business development things that you've been doing, talking about some of the interesting problems that your business or solution is actually going to be answering. Like, there are so many ways you can use social media platforms, and I'm sure we'll get into it much more now and definitely over time in the future. But the idea of using socials to go ahead and expand your reach beyond just your friends and families. That is a huge part of what social media is.
Should you try to tackle all social media platforms?
I wouldn't. And I'll tell you why. I was working with a brand one time where they had a profile on Twitter. And so, but they hadn't been active for 8 months. And one of the comments on their profile was, "Are you guys even still open? You haven't posted on Twitter for 8 months." And you're like, whoa. Talking about like this digital business card earlier, right? The idea of every interaction can essentially serve as a digital footprint or a digital business card. And I would essentially say it's better for you to look great on 1 or 2 platforms than you try to be on 5 that don't ever look great. And I mean, it's amazing because social media marketing part, if you're a brand or an entrepreneur, there's so many things that could come to your mind in terms of a message or what you're trying to convey, etc. But it's one of the last things that we actually do. And it's as if like it just falls off the priority list. And going deep with a few of these, trying to really find your audience, trying to find that community, trying to find a place where you can add value. It's not, there was another brand I was working with that they wanted to go ahead and post that they were having a birthday party at their office. It's like, no, nobody cares about you posting about a birthday party, but you actually finding a way to actually show value. That's what's hard, right? Because every brand is competing for a certain amount of time to go ahead and show the value that they can add.
I think there's another use case for social media as well, right? So posting social media is great. I wouldn't necessarily expect that it's going to drive traffic to you or be, for customer acquisition. But what it does do is it shows proof that there's a business behind the words and the brand. It's one of those things right now, I believe that it's part of the checklist for somebody who's doing research about working with an organization to check some of the socials. And whether that's TikTok or Facebook or LinkedIn, to learn a little bit more in addition to a website presence. Having that as a part of your infrastructure can be very powerful as well.
The idea of a marketing strategy, and we're talking about the top 5 marketing strategies, and I'm sure that we can do entire segments on each individual one of these headlines here, right? But one of the ideas of the marketing side is if a user is looking for a product or service, what should they expect? Let's say that your brand is Acme, give me one, Acme shirts, right? And so if it's Acme shirts, if I type in Acme shirts and I type in Acme shirts reviews, or I type in Acme shirts discount codes and all of these things, like what does your brand show up as, right? And so it's like social media actually really helps with a lot of those specific questions. And so I really couldn't agree more with what you just said, for sure.
And it's a lot less expensive than a website, especially when you're first beginning. And so to work with Canva and create some images and some content, and to have a designer who's a freelancer to help you with that. So it can be very inexpensive to get some content out there and to show proof of what you're doing. Number 5 on our list today is websites. Chris, why is having a website so important?
So off the top of my head, I can think of 3 major things for a website, right? The first is those that would be using it as a digital business card, right? You have others that would be using it for lead generation and then for e-commerce. And so when we talk about the importance for one of these websites, I mean, it really does help establish credibility. It really does set the tone for like that business card conversation we were having earlier. Is it a legit company? Is it something that people that see design on a website that is, whether it's appealing or looks professional, has a huge part in what people actually view on the brand, right? So it's having a website that actually does these things is really important. Now, a huge part of the purpose behind it, and if it's e-commerce, for example, I mean, being able to actually sell products on your website, of course, that's super important, right? You're talking about lead generation, right? How are you going to be collecting information from a user online? That's essentially what a lead generation website is supposed to do. So a lead generation website can be a handful of pages. It could be 1 page. It could be any of these things, but
A website could be 1 page?
Yes, a website could be 1 page. And so there are templates you can use, and I know we talked about it in a previous webinar, but there are templates you can use on so many of these products related to like a content management solution or things like that, that you can get a template, have a website up within only a few days.
So when you're first starting, true or false, you don't have to spend a fortune in order to get a website going.
Absolutely true.
Okay. And so, like you said, we can do 1 page. You scroll down and have different sections like services and about us and a testimonial or something like that. But that's all you really have to do to get it going. You don't have to keep aiming, where you don't have to overanalyze. Get 1 page up there, show your services to the world, And then you can work on incrementally improving it over time. You get a couple more pages, so it's not just one page.
Yeah.
And then you can get into blogging and content and so forth. But ultimately, it's you got to start somewhere, and don't let perfect get in the way of very good. Get that page up there, show the world who you are, and then start building on it.
Yeah. And so some of the websites that I've seen or worked on in the past, I mean, I've had business owners that are, let's say that they're developers, right? They're like really big real estate developers, et cetera. And they don't necessarily do business online like that. They do business more through word of mouth and through building connections and all these things. But it's when someone looks them up online, they need to exist, right? You have those like the lead generation, like single page, et cetera, like all these things you can do. Having the ability to have a website that actually helps you expand your reach. And that's a huge part as to why there are companies that are able to scale so much. And so, I mean, some of the basic elements in terms of having your brand, having a clear message, who you are, et cetera, how some of the services you provide, why you're the best one to go with. I mean, we talked about that in terms of the networking. We talked about that in business cards, but you can go really deep with that. But I really, really couldn't agree more on don't let perfect get in the way of you starting a website, getting your message out there, letting people actually know what you can do, right? And how you can offer them value. It's a shame when there are companies or there are brands that are they're so good, but a website was never good enough, right? And so,
Well, and I think the other thing is many of our listeners are probably thinking, what about SEO? How long will it take me to rank on Google? The answer is a while. Google is serving up the best websites for people searches, and no offense, your website's not going to be there yet. And it's going to take some time. It's going to take some content. It's going to take people coming to your website and having experience. So you can't worry about that right now. Long term, yes. SEO, you should make sure the infrastructure is correct. You should make sure there's relevant content and the user experience is incredible. But for right now, just get a page up there with some content so that you can prove that we should be doing business with.
exactly.
All right. So we talked about the top 5 ways to do inexpensive marketing that are easy. We did business cards. We talked about networking, friends and family. We did social media, and then we ended with website, but we've got one more. We've got a bonus today. Email marketing. Chris, why is email marketing important?
I've worked with multi-million-dollar brands. I've worked with small brands of marketing budgets of $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 for a month. And so I can tell you from all sizes of companies, and I'll give you an example in terms of percentages for some of those larger companies. Some of those larger companies I've seen have 30 to 40% of their revenue being attributed to their marketing, to their email marketing efforts. And so let's say it's e-commerce. When someone goes ahead and fills out and adds products to a cart, an email that's going to simply say something catchy like, we saw that you left stuff in your cart. Can we help you purchase it now? Right? I mean, there's so many ways in terms of how you can use email marketing, whether it's following up with leads that have not either interacted with you, or you got business cards from someone and you sent out an email, right? And they didn't get back to you. So email marketing is another channel that is very cost effective. For less than $100 a month, you can have full-on platforms that are going to help you set up these emails, and you would be able to then continue to share your message and the value you can show to everyone in your audience.
I think that we, as a population, we want quick satisfaction. And we have to remember, especially in marketing, that just because somebody isn't responding to your email, just because they're not answering your phone call, just because they didn't buy with you today, it's not personal. Doesn't mean they don't want to buy from you or get more information. And so, like you said, we need more contacts, and you want to be in front of that potential customer when they're ready to buy. And so don't look at it as spamming. Look at it as being there for the customer so that they have easy access to your information. They can click through and buy.
Right on. And so, I mean, we talked about on our previous webinar for how to manage an email list and things along that nature. But I mean, having audiences, having people segmented based on intent, or let's say you offer 5 services in your company and you have one audience for each service, right? I mean, being able to give a detailed message, or one of the things you just said, something that I talked about earlier, right, is the right message to the right person at the right time. So you don't know when the right time is, right? We don't control when the right time is. That's for a user to say. And so, but one thing is that you have brands that are what Google coined a few years ago as micro conversions. I think you had made a small reference to it earlier. This micro conversion conversation is that maybe me getting started with the newsletter first, and then I went and created an account so I can go ahead and start adding things to my cart. And then it took me another 5 months before I actually purchased. There are brands that are going to be wooing their customers throughout the entire journey. And so now, if you have helped me in step 1, in step 2, in step 3, in the research phase, in the awareness phase. You answered all my questions. At the end, how terrible would it be for another brand to come in and just catch that lead or that prospect that you have done all the research for, you've done all the marketing messaging for, etc., but you didn't have a message at the end of the journey to say, hey, we're still here, just don't forget about us, right? And there's so many ways you can phrase that or message that, etc., but it's the idea of this nurturing an audience, right? Or you're trying to send them a message consistently as to how you can add value. I mean, it's out of sight, out of mind.
It's fast, it's easy, and it's inexpensive.
There you go.
To email marketing. All right, there we had it. The top 5 plus a bonus of email marketing. Now you have some tools to be able to do some cost-effective marketing when you start out. That should be really easy. Any questions, reach out to us. We look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks.